Before we get started, we just want to thank Old Republic Surety for sponsoring this episode of Let's Get Surety, as well as NASBP virtual seminars for the 5th year in a row. For more information on Old Republic Surety, visit www.orsurety.com. Now on to our show.
You're listening to Let's Get Surety. Let me hear your bonding talk with Kat Shamapande.
Hi, it's Kat Shamapande. I got Larry LeClair, the Director of Government Relations at NASBP, here with me today.
Hey, Kat. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming, Larry.
You bet.
We're going to talk today a little bit about just talking to your elected officials and how to talk to them about surety.
I mean, you know, and what I always say, we have a fly-in every year, of course, and the first thing I start off with, and some folks that come into town, into D.C., may be a little bit apprehensive, a little bit nervous about going.
Yeah, I mean, that's your elected official.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, they're a little bit nervous. What do I say? What do I do? And we certainly prepare our members when they come into town. And the first thing I say is, hey, look, I mean, when you go in, and oftentimes you're probably not going to meet with the member. You might meet with a staff. But I said, if you do meet with a member, you know, they want to know who you are. You're a constituent, right? You're a voter. Every vote counts. Boom, right? I mean, so you want to make sure that you tell them who you are. And certainly you talk about the product. You talk about the importance of bonding and what it offers to small businesses, right? Subcontractors, suppliers, right? And the protection that the bond offers. That's the first thing I tell the members that come into town.
Share that story.
Exactly. Yeah. You know, I mean, really, it's the importance of, and so many businesses out there are small, right? And they need that payment protection that the surety bond product offers. So it helps them. It helps their constituents. It certainly does, because not only are you talking to the bond producer who is a voter, right? Mm-hmm. You're also talking about those other impacted small businesses that may be also voters in that congressional district or in that state if you're going to see a U.S. senator by chance, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's the first thing I say is just talk about the importance of the product and the number of businesses that you represent that are protected by that product.
Okay. So, and don't get stage fright, right?
I mean, you know, that's the thing. I mean, that's the thing. It's just they're people too. I mean, you certainly see members on TV, and whether it be through committee hearings, and sometimes there's this you're sort of like awestruck.
Yeah.
You don't need to be. And a lot of times, you know, a lot of these House officials now, they started out either in city government or they started out in the state house, right?
They're people just like you and me.
You know, they are. And a lot of times, you know, a lot of the members have backgrounds, whether it be in insurance, right? A lot of members are insurance agents. They could be in construction. A lot of times they're teachers, they're educators, small business owners. So just, you know, have a conversation that you would be having when you're talking to someone on the street, really.
Okay. So when you're setting up the appointment, can that be difficult? I mean, should you just come to their office? So should you set up the appointment? And can it be hard to set up those appointments?
You know, I mean, we've certainly helped our members when they've come into town. I'd like to make just a small observation. I mean, every year we have a fly-in, but I've always said to NASBP members, you know, it's not just one day a year, right? I mean, it should be every day, and Mark McCallum and I have said this, every day should be, you know, advocacy day, right? Yeah. So oftentimes there'll be members of Congress, they'll have, whether it be town hall meetings, when Congress is in recess. I've always emphasized, hey, look, why don't you go and attend one of these town hall meetings?
When they're back in their home states.
When they're back in their home states. I mean, you know, go in, introduce yourself, and talk about your business. And, you know, that's how you develop relationships, you know. I mean, and these people, you know, certainly these people and our members, they're relationship building people, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's what they do.
Yeah.
Right? They understand the importance of networking. They understand the importance of building relationships. And I understand there could be that hesitancy of, I'm a little bit intimidated, but they shouldn't be. So my thing is every day should be advocacy, whether you're attending a town hall or, just go out and do it. Or if you're coming to D.C. perhaps on business. Yeah. Right? And we're not having a fly-in that particular time, but you just happen to be visiting the nation's capital. We've gone to the Hill with members, NASBP members, when it wasn't a fly-in day. Just going up there, knocking on doors. A lot of times, if you're, a voting constituent, someone will take the time to see you.
So it's not always the congressman or the senator that you're speaking with. You might be speaking with their staff?
Correct.
And that's still helpful, right?
Absolutely it is. Oftentimes, policy matters are actually made by staff. They're presented with issues. Staff is presented with issues. That is vetted through staff, and then in turn, staff will go and turn to his or her boss, right? They'll say, hey, National Association of Surety Bond Producers came in and talked to me about this particular issue. What do you think? Yeah. Right? So it's not necessarily important all the time to see your member. Staff can certainly play that intermediary role. Yeah. Well, and you spend a lot of time working on the Hill. What's the difference really when they're hearing from a constituent? I mean, because we're up there and we're talking to them, but what's the difference when they hear that coming from one of their constituents? I think it matters because every vote counts. I mean, they certainly, when I go to the Hill, I represent the association, and certainly, that's important. But it's important to hear from their voters and their constituents. I mean, so I can't stress the importance of whether it's a fly-in, whether it's a town hall, whether you're on vacation, you're in D.C., knock on the member's door. And I'm certainly there to provide assistance. I'm happy to go with NASBP members to the Hill, even if they don't have an appointment. Come on in. Yeah. Well, and we've been living in a pretty heated political environment. I mean, to say the least, right? Right. But absolutely. If you're meeting with a congressman, you may not agree with them on every issue, but that's probably not something, I'm just guessing, that you want to bring into that meeting. Is that right? I would not get into a political debate with a member of Congress because you're not going to win, right? I mean, there's sides to every story. We're in somewhat of a contentious time in the country. We are, yeah. I mean, there's tribalism out there on both sides. My point has always been when we brief members to go to the Hill, it's like, just be courteous, respect their point of view. If in fact they raise an issue that you don't understand or you don't have an answer to, it's okay. Yeah. That's what NASBP staff is for. They can certainly come back to us at a later time. I'm in the DC area, so I can always go to the Hill and answer any potential outstanding questions that the staff might have raised. Oh, that's great. So if something comes up where there is a question that you can't answer, you could refer them back to you, exactly. To NASBP and to you specifically. Absolutely, and they can come back to me, and I can follow up. And most of the times, to be honest, I do follow up with visits, and it helps me do my job too, because I know if a constituent has gone into a particular office and made a connection, that helps me with my networking on the Hill as well. So it's a double-edged sword. I want to get the NASBP member in the office, and I also want to sort of capitalize on that as well. Yeah. So if you were going in to speak with your elected representative, how do you know what you should be talking about? Like, you might have something that you specifically want to talk about. Are there talking points out there or some information that's available to kind of help guide us in getting out there and talking to our elected officials? Absolutely. I mean, we have on our website, we do have advocacy talking points on NASBP.org. Okay. And during the fly-in, we always prepare what we call a one-pager, right? And just kind of to circle back, the one thing I always tell or say to the NASBP members that are coming into town, number one thing you want to talk about is the product. Boom. Yeah. First of all, You talk about the product and the importance of the product and the Miller Act and the bonding threshold that's been around since 1935, right?
Right.
So that's the first thing you want to talk about, and the businesses that you touch in your state or your district.
Trying to reflect how it is important to them in their area.
Absolutely, absolutely.
That makes sense.
And then thereafter, we usually have a couple issues that we'll ask the members to speak on, and we'll use the talking point document as a leave behind. It usually has my contact information. So if staff should have a follow-up question, they can certainly reach back out to me as well. So we make that information easily and readily available to the NASBP members.
That's great. So I like what you just said about leave behinds. How important are leave behinds when you're going to visit with an elected official?
They are. I think they really are. I think there's value in having it's really, and what we've done is we've been very simplistic about our points. We make several points on each topic. It's usually 2 or 3. And then we can get down further into the details thereafter if we have a follow-up meeting with a congressional office. But I think just a simple one-pager is important. And I always say to the constituent that's going into the office, make sure you drop your card.
Oh yeah.
So when that member goes back into the district or into the state, they have a card, and all these offices have district offices in their states as well, right?
Yeah.
So the district office. Well, I'm certain the card goes back to the district office. They create a database. Sometimes it's used for fundraising opportunities, right?
Yeah.
So there's reach out from the office. Hey, we saw that you were in our Washington, D.C. office. So, by the way, so-and-so is up for re-election. So there's that,
Yeah.
But it's an opportunity to make sure that you have a card. You always want to lay the card on them.
Yeah. Yeah, it's good. Just so they have a way to follow up.
Exactly.
Should you reach back out to them? I know we wouldn't want to, seem like we're imposing or being overbearing, but is it important to reach back out after you've visited with someone?
I've always said that, and I think it's important as a courtesy to the office. Thank them for their time.
Okay.
Right? Most likely you have the staffer that you've met with. And even if you've met with a member, the staffer, the deputy chief or the chief of staff or the legislative assistant will provide a business card to the constituent that goes in, right? So you always want to just send a brief email. I've always said, maybe I'm somewhat old school. It's really a nice touch, a handwritten note. And I know those are, like Gone with the Dodo Bird, right? So this is like, this it doesn't exist anymore. But
there's something about it, yeah.
I think it's a nice personal touch to and I'm talking a couple, 3 sentences. Thank you for your time. I enjoyed meeting with you. I hope to see you back in the district. That's it.
So you don't need pages, just real simple, short.
And if you have any questions, call Larry and here's his information. It's always a nice to do.
That's a nice tip. Yeah, I like that.
Thank you. Yeah.
So, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, go ahead.
I just wanted to see if you had any stories from members, like success stories of things that have gone really well when they've met with their congressman, or how they've continued that conversation beyond that initial meeting. Do you have any stories from the field that you could share?
No, I do. I've got a couple. One in particular, and the story that I'm going to raise is about a particular member of Congress who came in the 2010 season, right?
Okay.
So it was right after. So President Obama was elected in 2008, midterm 2010. The Republicans had a big surge. A lot of the Freedom Caucus folks came in. A lot of the total revolution. They didn't like the way the country was going. It was the whole healthcare debate and so forth, right? And one in particular member of Congress that came in was a member from upstate New York who just happened to be a contractor.
Oh, okay.
His name was Richard Hanna, fantastic guy. Come to find out, Richard Hanna's bonding agent was the past government relations chair, Kevin Garrity. So you kind of put
serendipity.
Right?
Yeah.
You couldn't script this any better way.
Yeah.
So we reach out and we start reaching out and talking to Mr. Hanna, right? Who ended up being a fantastic advocate on behalf of the industry. It couldn't have worked any better.
He would have had a perspective that not many congressmen would.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. He spoke at several of our events. He carried a bill on our behalf to put further regulation in place for individual unregulated sureties. he understood the importance of a regulated surety market. And he understood that, what he had to go to become bonded, he thought that other contractors should also have to do that as well. So he certainly understood. He was a fantastic member. Unfortunately, he retired. But there are other members, and that's how we go about sort of identifying members of Congress that we can work with, that understand the product, understand construction. We also work closely with other members of the industry, such as the Associated General Contractors of America, the American Subcontractors Association, the Specialty Trade Contractors. We're part of a coalition right now on Capitol Hill. So we're getting our message out there. We're at the point where we're trying to establish a congressional caucus. So now the coalition is going to House members saying, would you like to spearhead a congressional caucus to talk about procurement remedies and procurement reform? So, I mean, it's a lot of different things kind of going on, but the success story that I want to come back to is Richard Hanna, and that's how you kind of go about identifying, new members. So.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, that is such a great success story. It really shows how those relationships that you talked about and how building those relationships can have such a incredible impact.
And our members can identify with that, too. They understand the importance of building relationships.
Bond producers are relationship people,
Absolutely. From day one, building that relationship with that small contractor all the way up through, right? I mean, and they follow that contractor all the way up through and building its business. And that's kind of, in a nutshell, that's kind of what lobbying is too. You build a relationship, you work at it, and that's kind of similar to what I do. There's
a lot of synergy between the two roles.
There really is. There really is.
So our producers are natural lobbyists. Is that what you're saying?
Well, I mean, they're dedicated. They're dedicated people to the profession. They certainly are. I couldn't ask to be with a better group of committed volunteers. And as I said, I mean, Kevin Garrity and other government relations chairs, a number of folks that are
also passionate too.
Very passionate. Those individuals show up for the fly-in, and not only that, they recognize being involved at the state level, being involved with their local AGC, ASA chapters, going to meetings. It's not just, and they know this is just not coming to the Hill one day a year.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, Larry, bringing it back local and talking to your state officials and at those state meetings. And can you say more about that? Is there anything else you want to say about that?
Absolutely. I mean, to me, I mean, with what's going on Capitol Hill right now, I mean, we were hoping that maybe perhaps, I mean, it's a lot of different things going on, but I mean, certainly the state level is where a lot of things are happening, especially construction-related issues. I mean, we've got public-private partnerships out there right now at the state level. We want to make sure those procurement agreements are bonded. We're moving in that direction. That's how the Government Relations Committee gets involved with those particular issues. So we do have a good nexus of state rep advocates on our behalf that recognize, hey, it's not just the design build now. It's moving to more of a different delivery methods with P3s.
Yeah.
So we want to make sure that we're represented at the state capitals as well. And we do have those folks that are willing to wear out some shoe leather, to go to the state capitals, right?
Yeah.
To go to Augusta, Maine, where we're from, right?
That's right, Maine,
or Boston, or wherever, or Rhode Island, or not just the Northeast. I'm a little bit passionate for the Northeast, as you can tell, being, a New England Patriots fan, but I digress. But, wearing out the shoe leather and going to these meetings at the state capitals, it's important. And the folks, the volunteers recognize that.
Well, before we wrap up, is there anything else you want to share about getting out there and meeting with your elected officials?
No, I mean, I just want to come back to the every day is advocacy day. I mean, just don't make it one day a year and go and meet with your your House member if they're having a meet and greet in your district, and introduce yourself. And it's not just House members, Senate members do it as well.
Yeah.
So I mean, be an advocate. We've got some strong advocates that are part of this association. I'm proud to say that, and just keep up the good work. I mean, that would be sort of my final thoughts.
Okay, great. That's terrific. Well, before we leave, Larry, I'd like to ask you a question.
Sure.
What keeps you up at night, Larry?
Oh, God. I've got this crazy Welsh Corgi. His name's Jack. He's like 12 years old. He keeps me up. But, just making sure I'm doing a good, sound job on behalf of the association. Yeah. That's what I want to do. And that keeps me going and keeps me active and keeps me up at night sometimes.
Well, if anyone wants to find out more about advocacy, where should they go?
NASBP.org/advocacy. And I'm here to help.
Thanks so much for talking to me today, Larry.
You've been listening to Let's Get Surety, brought to you by the National Association of Surety Bond Producers. For more information about the NASBP and its members, visit nasbp.org.
Before we go, we just want to say thank you again to Old Republic Surety for their generous support in sponsoring this episode of Let's Get Surety. For more information on Old Republic Surety, visit www.orsurety.com.